Well. Clemson Tiger fans, college football fans, welcome back to another episode of the All In Show right here on Clemson at the Voice of College Football. Thank you so much for joining me. We got a jam-packed show for you guys tonight. Obviously, it is rivalry week. Clemson versus South Carolina in Death Valley, South Carolina. 12 noon kickoff in the Valley. We're going to have a ton to talk about tonight. Obviously, we're going to give you guys an injury update. Obviously, we're going to give you our final thoughts on that Citadel win this past weekend. All of that coming up and more in tonight's episode. But before we get into the show, if you are not subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button for us. Really helps us out. We're on the road to 6,000 subscribers. So all of your help with that will be greatly appreciated. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to share the video. And last but certainly not least, if you would like to support what me and Jordan do here on the All In Show, please hit that super chat feature. It'll ensure that your comment and or question gets responded to during the live episode, and your support will be greatly appreciated as well. And with all of that said, and without further ado, let me bring on my co-host, Jordan Bowman. What's up, Jordan? How you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing good, man. We're together, earlier in the week than normal. Obviously, feels a little strange to be doing this on a Monday, but regardless, man, this is the week we all wait for every year. It means more than any other game on the schedule. I'm excited to talk about it. We're simulcasting to the South Carolina channel, so if any Gamecock fans join in, then feel free to give your input. But yeah, man, I'm excited. I'm nervous, very nervous. All of the above, but I'm excited more than anything. You are muted, my good sir.
It's going to be a great week. Rivalry week is always a great week in college football, and none other than the South Carolina Clemson game. One of the best games of the weekend. Should be a top 15 matchup come game time. We'll see what the College Football Playoff Committee does when they debut their latest rankings. Who knows what they're going to do with South Carolina? Who knows what they're going to do with Clemson? But judging by all of the losses this past weekend, it's going to be a big boost for both South Carolina and Clemson. Should be a top 15 matchup. Probably been a while since that's happened. Going to be a crazy day in the Valley. Although it's a noon game, it still will be a great crowd. I assure you that the Clemson fans will show out. But before we get into all of that, happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Hopefully everybody, if they are traveling or planning to travel, have safe travels. Hopefully you enjoy your Thanksgiving with your family or your friends. And we're going to give a quick shout out to the comment section before we get into tonight's episode, Jordan. So we got Tiggs in here, Jackson Johnson, always in here plugging all the Voice of College Football stuff that we need him to. Wet Socks is in here, John Sarian, one of our regulars and one of our moderators. Isaac Smith, that's everybody that's gotten into the chat section so far. So thank you guys all for getting in here. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Jordan, what are you doing for Thanksgiving?
Yeah, I still haven't decided. I was gonna go visit my mom's family over in Eastern North Carolina, but then I was like, I don't know, do I really want to do that? So my plans are pending right now. I know that you will be visiting family here pretty soon. I might just drop by over at your place. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, come on over. We'd love to have you. No issues there, man.
Wait, hold on. But first things first, favorite Thanksgiving dish?
Favorite Thanksgiving dish? That's a good one. I did not prepare for this question. So I would say the ham is my favorite Thanksgiving dish.
That is a classic. It's a classic. I totally understand. I'm a ham guy myself. That might be my favorite too. Either that. John Sarian says dressing. You know, I have a love-hate relationship with dressing. Like sometimes like I'm just not feeling it. It depends on who makes it, but I'm like sometimes it's like it was an acquired taste for me because when I was growing up I did not like dressing at all. Um, but like I've gotten used to it, and like I got I basically tricked myself into liking it. But still, like sometimes, like I'm just like I'm not really feeling it. So some years I'll be all up in the dressing, and then other years I'm like get that away from me. Um, you know, the mac and cheese is also a classic. Um, uh, Sweet potato pie. Tig says in the chat
That's a good one.
that I don't damn okay that might have to be my favorite. And it's kind of I know it's not the meal, but
Right. I tell
it
you,
can't
underrated
be.
thing for Thanksgiving: leftover turkey sandwiches.
Dude, yes. Oh
It's
my
better
god.
than the turkey on Thanksgiving Day. Leftover turkey sandwiches, one of the most underrated. Well, I don't know if it's underrated, but one of my favorite leftover things when it comes to Thanksgiving is
It
leftover
that
turkey
oh
sandwiches.
yeah, man. I Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Is out here. He said my favorite is all of it. Hey, I'm with you, man.
yeah, I'll eat. Um, I love me speaking of, and we were talking about sweet potato. I love me some yams, man. So
Yeah,
I
yeah. There you
can I
go.
get to the yams? Like I'm all about the yams. I was about to serenade
Yeah,
y'all.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so man, that might I might have to go. Okay, I'm gonna go sweet potato pie. Then I'm gonna go mac and cheese. And then I'm gonna go ham. That'll be my top three.
Hey, there you.
And
Hey,
then yams will probably
that's a
be
solid top three, man. That's a
yeah.
solid top three. I'll put that top three against almost anybody's top three when it comes to Thanksgiving dinners. So hope everybody out there has great plans for Thanksgiving. Hope all of your travels are safe and you get to enjoy Thanksgiving with the people that you want to enjoy it with. Um, but with that said, Jordan, we got a ton to talk about tonight. It is rivalry week. South Carolina versus Clemson, one of the most heated rivalries in the country, hands down. But before we get into this heated rivalry, we got to talk about the rankings, man. The rankings are not out technically as far as the college football playoff rankings, but they are out as far as the AP and the coaches polls. And although they don't necessarily always mirror the college football playoff rankings, it does give us some semblance of what the national media and everybody's thinking when it comes to college football. And none was crazier than this past week. We had, I think, 6 teams ahead of Clemson lose this past week. It was an absolute insane day of college football. You had Indiana lose, you had Alabama lose, you had Ole Miss lose, BYU, Texas A&M, and Colorado. All 6 teams losing that were ranked above Clemson. So what that does for the Clemson Tigers is obviously increase our chances of quote unquote backdooring our way into the 12 team college football playoff, maybe even without making the ACC championship game. Jordan, me and you have been very transparent on the show all season long, basically since that Louisville loss, that, hey, Clemson's got no shot without making it to and winning the ACC championship game. After last week, we may have been wrong. We might still be right, but we may have been wrong. So Clemson in the AP poll checks in at number 12. South Carolina checks in at number 16. How does it shake out in the college football playoff ranking, in your opinion? Does that reflect what the college football playoff committee is going to do? Because, in my opinion, in order for Clemson to have a chance at an at-large bid, let's say Miami goes up to Syracuse and wins. For Clemson to have a chance at an at-large bid, obviously they need to be in the 11 to 13 range. So, what are your thoughts, Jordan, on not only Clemson's ranking in the AP top 25, but everybody else's ranking as well.
Yeah, man. Like obviously this was one of the more chaotic college football weekends like I can remember.
Yeah.
I think Clemson's chances have certainly increased. Like we talked about it. They needed chaos to happen in order to really before we could really start talking about some scenarios where you could potentially make it without winning the ACC. The 5-spot jump. I don't know how much of that is a reflection of the AP voters loving Clemson more so than the other teams losing, especially since you beat the Citadel. So I mean that's not necessarily a needle moving win, but like I'm really interested to see how the college football committee, playoff committee decides to evaluate it because, Alabama lost and Colorado lost and BYU and Texas A&M, like all these teams, but some of these teams, quite frankly, even the ones with 3 losses, have a better resume than Clemson. If we're just talking like quality wins, like Clemson doesn't have many, really any. Like their best win is Pitt. Would you say?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, yeah, probably. Yeah,
I mean
that's the team that Clemson has beaten with the best record, right?
Yeah. I think the only team that Clemson's beaten that's bowl eligible, so
which is not good, right?
That's not good, man.
We'll get into the breakdown of the Clemson South Carolina game this weekend a little bit later in the show, but it makes it even more important what this weekend means. Not that South Carolina versus Clemson has ever not meant a lot, but it probably has a little extra juice this weekend for both teams because a win this weekend for South Carolina or Clemson could catapult the winning team into that 12-team playoff. There's a good possibility for the winner of this game to end up ultimately getting their number called in the 12-team playoff due to a win this coming Saturday. So this game is certainly going to mean a ton. Not that it has ever lacked any juice, but it means a whole lot this weekend because Clemson needs a marquee win, and beating South Carolina this weekend would certainly go a long way in giving the committee something to look at in a positive light for the Tigers when considering them as an at-large team for the 12-team playoff.
Yeah, absolutely. And feels weird to say because, just it's been a long time since, both teams have been at this level.
It's been a while.
South Carolina was ranked. They were kind of ranked in 2017.
Yeah,
I think they were ranked in the coaches. I'm not sure if they were ranked in the AP that year. But before that, the last time both teams were ranked in the top 25 when this matchup rolled around was 2013. And well, we don't need to talk about that game or any of those 4 other games before it. So, it's been a long time since the rivalry has had this stature. And Clemson certainly would need a win like this to kind of cement their place in the at-large discussion, because otherwise it's like they don't there's nothing really to rest your laurels on. Like it's a pretty empty especially if you lose this Saturday, it's a pretty empty 9-3, and you don't really have much in the way of marquee wins, and you did not look good. And so far you haven't looked good in either of your 2 losses, and depending on how Saturday looks, if you lose that game and you don't look that good, then you got no shot. So
obviously
this is gonna be interesting.
Yeah, obviously it's going to depend a lot on where the College Football Playoff Committee ranks Clemson, and we'll get into that pretty in depth in the next segment. But what are your thoughts on the rest of this top 25 ranking by the AP? Again, we're doing the show on Monday. We normally do it on Thursday, so we already have the College Football Playoff Committee's rankings. But since we moved it to Monday because of Thanksgiving, all we have to go off is the AP. The AP top 5 right now as it sits is Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, and Notre Dame round out the top 5. The top 10 is UGA, Tennessee, Miami, SMU, Indiana. Round out the top 10. Indiana falls 5 spots, obviously, after losing to Ohio State. Alabama falls 6 spots in the AP poll after losing to Oklahoma. Ole Miss falls 6 spots after losing to Florida. BYU falls 5 spots after losing to Arizona State, and Texas A&M falls another 5 spots after losing to Auburn. So your thoughts on the overall top 25 according to the AP poll?
Yeah, well, and you saw Colorado. Colorado also dropped 7 spots after losing to Kansas. So like it was a very chaotic weekend. But I mean, honestly, like when you look at the top 5, like I don't have too many complaints with it. Oregon should be the number 1 team, undefeated. Like they should be the consensus number 1 team. Ohio State 10-1, only losses to the number 1 team. Fine with that. Texas 10-1, only losses to UGA, top 10 team. Penn State only lost to Ohio State. Notre Dame is interesting because they have played really well as of late, but I cannot get that Northern Illinois loss out of my head. Like it feels like they got a mulligan for arguably the worst loss in the entire top 25. They're 10-1, and they've basically played really well in every other game, and they do have that win earlier at the beginning of the year over Texas A&M, which looks pretty good, mostly pretty good in retrospect. But like I can't get that out of my head. Like I don't think they're better than Georgia or I mean it comes down back to that whole thing of like when you're ranking these teams, you care about who do you think would beat who versus resume. And Notre Dame, they're in their 10 wins, has a pretty solid resume, and they've controlled and dominated most of their games. But that loss to Northern Illinois just feels like, well, that has to matter at some point. Like that is a terrible, terrible loss. Northern Illinois is in the bottom of the MAC right now. Like the bottom half of the MAC, they are not very good. So I don't know. That one is kind of hard to stomach. Let's see, Indiana, I'm fine with them dropping 5. It seems kind of harsh for losing to Ohio State, but they did lose by multiple scores. Bama, honestly, I don't know why they only fell 6 spots. If I'm being honest, like that just doesn't seem right to me. Like I had somebody pointed out to me that when Clemson lost to Georgia at the beginning of the year, they dropped more spots, like way more spots for losing to a top 10 Georgia team than Alabama, who dropped 6 spots for losing by 21 points to an unranked Oklahoma team who had not beaten a Power 4 opponent since September. Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
Look, you know why? Yeah, I mean, you know why. You know why.
Yeah, I do know why, but
because they play in the SEC. That's why.
Yeah.
Everybody knows them, and we'll get into it in the next segment. I want to save some of that for the next segment because we're going to talk about some of the national media types and their conversations about Clemson, the ACC, and everything. And when it comes to some of these 3-loss SEC teams and where they view them in contrast to some of these 10-2 ACC teams that we're gonna talk about, specifically Clemson. But we'll get into that in just a moment, Jordan. But if you like the rankings, if you like to debate the rankings, if you like to know the history of how college football has been ranked in the past, I encourage you to go check out Mark Rogers' new book. You can get it on Amazon, and it is an amazing read. I encourage you guys to go check it out. It talks about the historical 1990 reset, and kind of how the sport was shaped, how conference champions were kind of, and national champions were kind of elected back then, and the system that went into it, and all of the interesting narratives and craziness that went into college football in the 1990s. It's a really good read. I encourage you guys to go check it out. Jordan, what are your thoughts on Mark Rogers' new book, Disputed National Champions? You can get it on Amazon for $9.99. You can get it on the Kindle app for 99¢. Go check it out. Leave a review. Let them know the guys over on the Clemson channel sent you.
Yeah, man, it's a extremely informative book. And it's not a long read, but it is jam packed, like with information, and presented in a really, really digestible way. And you really get the full picture of kind of the chaos that was the 90s, and just how we came to be in terms of how we select our national championship, because this decade basically formulated the beginnings of the national championship game, and then eventually when it became the BCS, and then of course it's evolved since then to the playoff, and now we decide we have a way to determine a national champion on the field, although it's still not perfect by any means. So if you guys are interested in that, feel free to check it out. Like I said, I couldn't recommend it more.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Go check it out. Disputed National Champions on Amazon, $9.99, 99¢ on the Kindle. Go check it out. Let them know that the guys over on the Clemson channel sent you, and we would greatly appreciate your support with that. ACC bound, playoff bound. Is Clemson bound for either of those things? We're going to talk about it in this next segment. And first, Jordan, I want to talk about the ACC. And can Clemson get into the ACC championship game? And if they can, what is their avenue to get into the ACC championship game? As we know, SMU beats Virginia last weekend. They punched their ticket to the ACC championship game. So the only thing in doubt is whether it is Miami or whether it is Clemson heading to the ACC championship game to join SMU for the crown. The only avenue for Clemson at this point is for Miami to go up to Syracuse and lose this coming Saturday. Miami travels up to Syracuse, 3:30 kick in the Carrier Dome. I will always call it the Carrier Dome. I don't care what they call it now. It's the dome named after an ACC company with no AC, or AC company without an AC, I should say. But Miami, 81% chance to win the game. Obviously, they are the favorite. They are a 10.5-point favorite at this point. Jordan, what are your thoughts on this game? Miami travels up there. Do you give Syracuse any shot to pull the upset this coming Saturday, ultimately propelling Clemson into the ACC championship game? Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there's a shot, but for sure. I mean, Syracuse has had a really strong year in their first year under Fran Brown. Kyle McCord, they brought him in the transfer portal from Ohio State. He's had a really, really strong year, put up a lot of numbers. They've been throwing the ball around a lot. My thing with this matchup is, while Miami's pass defense has been susceptible to giving up big plays, the teams that have really had success on them were the ones that had success running the football. And what worries me about this matchup for Syracuse is they really don't run the football well at all, which is weird because I think they have a really good back in LaQuint Allen, but they just have not. They don't have the offensive line, and they have leaned on Kyle McCord when games have gotten really competitive and tight. Like they will throw the ball around. Like Kyle McCord has thrown the ball over 50 times, like multiple times this year. So they will abandon the run if they feel like they need to, and that kind of worries me because with this Syracuse offensive line and the talent that Miami has up front, I don't know if you want to suscept Kyle McCord to that many dropbacks without a complementary run game. So that's the thing that scares me because I think Syracuse could rack up a ton of yards, but Will they be overly explosive, and will it generate, points, and will they be able to score with this Miami offense that's been one of the best in the country this year? I'm not sure. That kind of worries me. But we're all Syracuse Orange fans on Saturday.
That's right.
And we'll find out our fate, after the South Carolina game. So that's one of the good things about playing at noon is the team doesn't have to know what their fate is until after the game is played. So it won't. I mean, you would hope it wouldn't matter. They would want to win the game regardless. But that way there's no distraction.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. I don't give Syracuse a great chance to win this game. The one saving grace is how bad this Miami defense has been pretty much the entire season. I do think if Kyle McCord has a good game, he's an up and down quarterback. He's a guy where he can light the world on fire, and he's a guy that can, absolutely struggle immensely at times. So what version of Kyle McCord are you going to get in this game? I think is super important. And if you get the version of Kyle McCord that is accurate, that is decisive, that kind of pushes the ball down the field, you can have a game where it's a shootout. Again, not a game that Miami is uncomfortable with at all. Pretty much the same game Miami's played the entire season. But you could also get the Kyle McCord that struggles immensely and turns the ball over and makes mistakes and doesn't do well. And in that case, Miami runs away with it. Right. What kind of game are you going to get? I would assume it'd be close for a while in the up in Syracuse, but I think ultimately, I think Miami pulls away in the fourth quarter. Right. I think this game is close for a while, but I do think Miami has too much firepower on offense, and I think their defense does just enough to get it done, and they pull away in the fourth quarter. I don't think Miami ultimately loses this game, although it would be great for Clemson if they did. We'd be in the ACC championship game. We would be facing SMU, and I give Clemson a really good chance to beat SMU in the ACC championship game. But unfortunately, I just don't think Clemson gets there. I think Miami gets it done this weekend. They know what's on the line, and they are going to be fully ready for this game. Although their defense has struggled, I just feel that a team of their caliber, and it's right there in their grasp, I feel like they're going to get it done this weekend. Just my personal opinion. But let's go ahead and flip the script to, is Clemson playoff bound, right? We talked about at the top of the show where I said me and you have basically relegated Clemson to you either get in the ACC championship game, you win that game and you get to the playoffs, or you don't sniff the playoffs at all. Well, that narrative completely changed last weekend with the 6 losses that happened ahead of Clemson, right? Again, the big thing to consider right now is we do not know what the College Football Playoff Committee truly thinks of Clemson until this weekend or until Tuesday when they come out with their rankings, right? Once they come out with their rankings, we will truly see if they consider Clemson as a at-large bid for the college football playoffs or whether they don't. I think Clemson has to land between 11 and 13, somewhere in there, in this college football playoff ranking in order to be considered an at-large bid. If you're anywhere outside of 13, I think there's zero chance, essentially, that you crack into the 12-team playoff, even if you beat South Carolina. Right? So it's going to be important where Clemson lands tomorrow in the College Football Playoff Committee's eyes. So 6 teams lost above Clemson this past Saturday, right? Indiana loses to Ohio State. Alabama loses to a bad Oklahoma team, a 5-5 Oklahoma team, mind you. Ole Miss loses to a 4-6 Florida team. A&M loses to a 4-6 Auburn team, and then Colorado loses to Arizona State, right?
Colorado lost to Kansas.
Kansas.
And BYU lost to Arizona State.
My bad. BYU lost to Arizona State.
Arizona State, yeah.
Colorado loses to Kansas, right? So here's the narrative being spun around mainstream media, particularly Heather Dinich, who has Texas A&M not falling at all in her rankings, even though you lose to a 4-6 Auburn team. I don't know how you lose to a 4-6 team and don't drop in the rankings at all. I don't care what conference you play in, Heather Dinich, but at the end of the day, you got to drop at least some if you lose to a 4-6 team, regardless of what patch is on their jersey and what conference it says. So,
I mean, a 4-6 team that lost to Cal and
it's a bad Auburn team, right? Now, Clemson's losses. Now, granted, everybody out there is going to say if Clemson would have just taken care of business, they wouldn't be in this predicament. And you're 100% correct. But Clemson's got 2 losses on the season as of today. Those losses are to a 9-2 Georgia team and a 7-4 Louisville team. I'm not here to try to convince you that Louisville is some great football team. Clemson should have never lost to that team. However, they're a 7-4 team. They're not a 4-6 team. And I know they play in the ACC, and everybody's going to come with that argument. At the end of the day, they're 7-4. Okay? You can't tell me that an Alabama team that loses by 3 touchdowns to Louisville or by 3 touchdowns to Oklahoma, a 5-5 Oklahoma team, a team that literally has a quarterback identity, he can't score points on offense. They're absolutely inept on offense. You lose by 3 touchdowns to that team, and you're going to be ranked above Clemson. Again, we don't know where the rankings are going to be. I'm just dispelling the arguments out there, right? An Ole Miss team, you lost to a 4-6 Florida team? Really? You're going to be ranked above Clemson? All these teams are 3-loss teams, right? Alabama, Ole Miss, Texas A&M. Texas A&M lost to a terrible Auburn team. You just said they lost to Cal, right? All these are 3-loss teams. You're going to be above a 10-2 Clemson team. I know Clemson's resume. It's not great. We haven't played good teams. I'm not going to sit here and lie, but those are all 3-loss teams, and every team they lost to is worse than Louisville and worse than Georgia. So their losses are far worse than any loss that Clemson has on their resume. I'll leave it there, and I'll let you talk about 12-team playoff. Can Clemson get into the 12-team playoff with a win over South Carolina this weekend? That's the big caveat. Clemson's got to take care of business this weekend against South Carolina in order for any of this stuff to matter.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you kind of hit the nail on the head, though. Like it's, there's certainly a level of brand bias when it comes to these voters. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, people are like, man, the AP poll dropped this team this many spots and this many, but at the end of the day, these are all however many, like, I don't know how many AP voters there are. There's like 60. I don't remember. There's a lot. And they all vote independently, and it's basically just an amalgamation of their votes. So it's like there's not like a conscious, like they sit together in a room and are like, okay, we're going to drop this team this much and then drop this team this much. Like it really is just kind of a numbers thing, and an average. So like it's hard to get too upset. But at the end of the day, like, especially when you look at some of these like individual voters and how they rank the teams, sometimes their methodology, you just wonder what they're looking at. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think Clemson is, they're going to have to combat that. And the best way to do that is to get a win on Saturday.
Get a win on Saturday.
South Carolina has been America's team. I don't want to call them America's team. I don't want to give them that much credit. But they have gotten a lot of love, for how they for the winning streak they've gone on, how, the good football they've played, the improvement of Lenore Sellers. Like, from a perception standpoint, a win on Saturday would mean a lot for your playoff chances. So, and sometimes perception is reality, even if it's, even if it's not really reality. So, like, Clemson definitely needs a shot in the arm as far as perception. You're 9-2, but nobody really looks at you as a 9-2 team.
Right. and you make it a more convincing win than people think it could possibly be, I think that goes a long way. Jordan, one last question before we move on to the next topic. A win over South Carolina, does it put Clemson in the at-large convo, the conversation for an at-large bid to the 12-team playoff? Does it, and should it?
I think it does, and I think it should. I mean, you look at the teams around them and kind of where they're situated. I mean, I think it only makes sense. That doesn't mean that I necessarily think that should propel them into the field, but they should be in that consideration. That'll definitely throw you. That'll solidify you on the bubble, which is weird. It's weird to be talking about bubble in football. That's typically we're talking about the NCAA. It feels like we're talking about the NCAA tournament. Yeah, shout out to Brad Brownell. They getting that win tonight. I had that on my phone screen right next to my laptop. But no, like I think it should. We'll see. I mean, it would be very strange, for the South Carolina. But I guess it also depends on the committee's opinion of South Carolina.
Yes.
when the rankings come out, because it seems like there's a conspiracy to make sure this game isn't a top 15 matchup, even though I think it should be. Right now, I don't think there's 15 football teams playing better than South Carolina right now, which hurts me to say. I almost threw up in my mouth a little bit. But they're playing really good football, so I expect them to get respect in the rankings tomorrow night, but I don't know that, or whenever the rankings come out. I never pay attention.
It gives me heartburn to hear you say that. But as far as the AP poll goes, they got Clemson at 12. They got South Carolina at 16. So not a top 15 matchup, to your point. So we'll see how it shakes out. It's certainly going to be interesting. But with that said, if you guys would like to get a little early odds on Clemson's chances to win or to get into the 12-team playoff, the Voice of College Football Bets has what you guys need. Mark Rogers and company over there giving out free chicken week after week when it comes to betting on college football. And if that's what you guys are interested in, we'll be right back after this message.
College football is even more exciting with some action on the line. And the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Let's start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread. I've got a 40-year track record. In fact, in 2023, at $100 played per game, you would have netted over $9,300. And guess what? I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill, our ace in the hole, show stopper from Wager Talk. 6 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick, which went 21-5 against the spread the last 2 seasons. I repeat, 21-5 against the spread. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Steve Dace and Matt Zemek. Become a YouTube channel member or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2024 a winner now.
All right, guys, you heard Mark Rogers there talking about the Voice of College Football Bets. If you enjoy putting a little bit of money on the games that you watch every Saturday, I encourage you to go check out the Voice of College Football Bets. Jordan, tell the people about the Voice of College Football Bets.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you heard it from Mark. Just impeccable record each and every year. You're going to get the best intel. The professional betting models, professional betting advice. I can't recommend it enough. So if you'd like to put a little bit of coin and spice up your Saturdays, then I 100% recommend checking out Voice of College Football Bets, which is available through Patreon. Link is in the description.
All right, guys, check it out. Tell them the guys over on the Clemson channel sent you. Moving right along with the show, Jordan, we got to talk about recruiting. And this is something that we touched on probably far more than we wanted to in this past post-game live. immediately following the Citadel game. But let's face it, there wasn't much to talk about when it comes to the game, and the conversation quickly moved to recruiting. Jordan, I'm going to ask you a very simple question. Is Clemson beginning to have a recruiting problem when it comes to high school recruits?
I think the answer is yes and no. I think I say yes. Well, let me start with no. I think you have phenomenal recruiters on this staff. I don't think this staff sucks at recruiting. I think this is a very good group of coaches that build really good relationships and attract really, really talented football players. So I want to get that out there. Yeah, there are probably things here or there they could do better, but I think you have a really, really strong recruiting staff overall. The yes comes in the second part, that the second newer part of recruiting. I should say newer is probably the wrong way to put it, because money has been involved in college football recruiting for a long time. But NIL, in this aspect, Clemson certainly has a problem. And we talked about it on the post-game live show. This university is not aligned when it comes to NIL. Whether it's from a lot of the blame is going on Dabo, and certainly he could be doing a lot better in that aspect. And as far as just as the face of the program promoting it, but this is a problem that's institutionally at its roots, the cause. Your fundraising apparatus, your booster program, your fundraising arm of the university and IPTE, and then you have the NIL component in the collective 110 Society. Those two are not coexisting very well. And I think that's really the issue that you're seeing. And from everything that's been talked about, rumored, change is coming. I don't think I think President Clements and Graham Neff, and Dabo himself are very aware of, the situation and what, how much, things need to change in order to make sure that you're able to land top talent in the future. So we'll see what those changes are. There's been reports that have come out during the week. I don't want to talk about it until we get more, real details. But the reality is you are behind, not just from a NIL dollar amount standpoint, but from a just your whole operation is behind, and that you need to correct that quickly, because we talked about it on Saturday. This recruiting class, you can't call it anything other than a failure. You lose 6 decommitments in one cycle. That's unheard of at Clemson, and especially when 4 of the 6 were top 100 kids. A 5th was your quarterback commit in this class. Like that can't happen.
No,
it can't happen.
It cannot, Jordan. And I think you kind of lay everything out really well when it comes to what is truly going on with recruiting in Clemson and the NIL tie-in that it is. Clemson, from a institutional standpoint, from a program standpoint, from a the powers that be at Clemson standpoint, right? All the way from the president to the AD to the head football coach. They have to get in a room and get aligned when it comes to this NIL deal. Clemson has not done a good enough job when it comes to NIL and raising funds and being all on the same page when it comes to how important NIL is in today's college football, in today's college sports, period. Clemson has done a poor job with messaging. They've done a poor job with getting their fan base to understand the importance of it. And that starts with Dabo Swinney, right? That starts with Graham Neff. That starts with President Clements, right? You mentioned all of those people because they're all integral parts of pushing out how important it is to be competitive in today's college football, in today's college sports, you have to contribute to NIL. And the money you contribute to IPTAY, that can't go to NIL. So getting people to understand that, I think, is part of the problem. Also tapping into your fan base that is not necessarily alumni is also something that Clemson needs to start getting better at. There's a huge Clemson fan base that did not go to Clemson. They're not Clemson alumni, but they believe in Clemson. They want Clemson to be successful as a football program, as a university, and tapping into that would go a long way. You talk about the 6 decommits so far this cycle. It's unheard of at Clemson. 4 of them were top 100 recruits, according to 24/7 Sports, right? It's bad. It can't be overstated how bad it has been in the 2025 class for Clemson. Clemson has currently the 30th overall class in the class of 2025, with 1 committed 5-star, 5 committed 4-stars, only 13 overall commits. It's not going to get it done. If you look at that overall 30th ranking when it comes to the overall class in both composite and in overall ranking, you got to go all the way back to 2009, 2010 to even be in the ballpark of that. Clemson or Dabo Swinney's first and second recruiting class were 36 and 27. So that 30 would be in the ballpark. Outside of that, Clemson's lowest ranking was 20, and that was in 2012. Being number 30, as we currently sit in the recruiting class of 2025, is unacceptable. We have a problem at Clemson. We have to start taking NIL seriously. We have to get into the ballpark of some of these universities. If we get into the ballpark, then you can sell all the extra stuff that Clemson does that some of the other universities, some of the other programs are not so great at. But if you're not even in the ballpark of some of these people, if you're $500,000 off, you're telling me that you would take a $500,000 pay cut in order to go do the same job at another company? Who in the chat's willing to raise their hand and be like, I'll take a $500,000 less to go do the same job at another company because X, Y, and Z? Nobody's doing that. Stop pretending like you would, because you wouldn't. So why do we expect these young athletes, these young high school players to do the same thing? I get it. I don't necessarily love where college football is right now. But at the end of the day, if Clemson wants to compete at the highest level, you got to start being better at some of this stuff. So, Jordan, how's Clemson right? How's Dabo Swinney? How does Clemson right the recruiting ship right now? Where we sit in this recruiting class of 2025, sitting at number 30, 13 commits, 6 decommits already in the class. Are there more to come? How do we right the ship? What are your answers?
Well, let's hope not, but wouldn't surprise me as far as the more decommits thing is concerned. But I mean, like I said, the way you fix it, I mean, you have to find that structure where the money that you're raising, like Clemson does not have a fundraising problem. Like they have a phenomenal fan support. That's one of the things that helped boost your football program over South Carolina's within the past decade. Is well, you have a smaller base to pull from, but the buy-in was 100%, was much better. And over the years, Clemson started passing South Carolina and giving every year. Like I've seen the numbers. Like it was pretty astonishing over the last decade. If you go look, South Carolina used to outgive Clemson like regularly. And now it's not anywhere close to that. And so I think like you have to be able to find ways to make sure that those streams of money are going where you need it to. And that starts with, marketing, because the way the 110 Society has been marketed has been absolutely terrible. Like, you rarely ever hear about them. And I've heard some pretty damning things about the leadership there too. So I don't want to get too in the weeds
I don't
of
mean
that.
to interrupt you, Jordan, but you're an alumni of Clemson University, correct? You graduated from Clemson University. We all know that,
yes, sir.
right? I am not an alumni of Clemson University, but I did grow up a Clemson fan my entire life, right? And I heard Jason Priester ask this question over the past week or so. Have you ever received anything from the 110 Society? Whether it be an email, text message, hey, come support, blah, 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 whatever. Have you ever received anything from the 110 Society?
Maybe once or twice. Probably a message. Probably an email from President Clements. Back when, like, it really, I can't even. I'd have to go and look, but I can't even think of one off the top of my head. But when it
second question, follow-up question.
Okay, I know where you're going with this.
How often do you receive something from IPTAY?
Oh, Jesus, man! Like, it feels like every week.
How many unread IPTAY emails do you have in your mailbox right now?
Dude, like, if I would pull it up right now, like, it is ridiculous. It is ridiculous, and especially since I'm a young alumni, they bombard you because they want to get you start. They want to start you giving early. Like, it's a very and they give you discount. There's a whole discount package for so many years after you're moved from.
Clemson fan. I've never been an alumni. I've never been enrolled into Clemson as a student. I've just been a Clemson fan my entire life. I get emails from IPTAY probably weekly.
Yes.
I have never, ever received an email or anything from the 110 Society. The only reason I know about the 110 Society is because I follow Clemson football. Otherwise, I wouldn't even know what the 110 Society was. That's what I'm trying to point out about Clemson and their NIL collectives.
And even when they were two collectives, when it was dear old Clemson and Tiger Impact, you've never heard from either of them. Like, so when they consolidated, nothing changed.
Yeah, you would have thought that consolidating those two organizations into one would have resulted in a more robust, aggressive fundraising effort, but it hasn't. I've never received anything from the 110 Society, but I get stuff from IPTAY all the time. And I'm not even a Clemson grad. And IPTAY's hit me up all the time. So that's just my point, is that Clemson is losing the battle in their own fan base when it comes to raising NIL funds. And it's unacceptable. Clemson has been one of the most forward-facing universities when it comes to building a football program. When it came to building their $55 million football facility that they've renovated like 3 times since. They were one of the first to ever do something like that, to build a football-only facility. So my question is, why has Clemson been not forward-facing when it comes to NIL and the new challenges that college football presents? I don't understand it, because we've been so forward-facing in other aspects of college football that I just don't understand why we're not as forward-facing when it comes to NIL, when it comes to the new world of recruiting. Because high school recruiting and NIL, they just go hand in hand now. Like it or hate it, it doesn't really matter. It is what it is.
Yep. And it starts with messaging. I think first and foremost, the university is not aligned in its messaging on the importance of NIL. And some of that is the head coach's fault, because he has made comments in the past. There's many in this fan base that have the mentality that NIL is the devil, and they're not going to, why spend any amount of money on that? Because we don't want kids that are coming here for money. And while I understand that, I don't think any of us like any of the drawbacks that have come from NIL and the things that have gotten really shady about it.
Let me preface what you just said, because this is how I feel as a fan, and this is just me personally. I don't want anybody coming to Clemson because of the sole fact of money.
Right. I'm with you.
It's okay for money to be a factor in their decision. We got to stop pretending like money and NIL opportunities being a factor in these high school players' decision is suddenly means that they're not Clemson material. Oh, they're not a Clemson man. They're not, blah, 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 blah. Like, no, money should 100% be a factor in their decision. Now, all of the other stuff should matter as well, right? Development, how well the school is, what opportunities they give me, the micro internships, the Paul journey, all of that stuff, right? That should matter as well. But we can't sit here and pretend like in the world of NIL that money's just not an issue and that they should pretend like it's not. It's football. If another school is offering $100,000 more a year, that's $400,000 over 4 years. You're telling me that you expect a kid to turn that down for a similar opportunity at another university? Come on, man. Let's be real. We got to get into the ballpark. You can ask them to take less, but it's got to be reasonable.
100%. And that's the problem. A great example of this is Georgia. Now, I know a lot of people like to think that, Georgia is just out here dropping bags left and right.
Right. Yeah.
Georgia competes in the NIL game, but they are not, contrary to popular belief, they are not just out here over, spending and dropping like multi-million-dollar deals for a bunch of kids. They do get kids at a discounted rate to a degree.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But the difference is their NIL packages are still competitive in the space. And obviously their proven track record. And that's where their proven track record of development, the winning the national championships, all the amenities and resources that they have make up that difference and get a kid to pick your school. Yeah.
That's when you can sell all your extra stuff in your program, right? You can sell Paul Journey. You can sell, the micro internships. You can sell all the extra stuff that you do that other universities aren't great at. But in order to even get to that conversation, you got to be in the ballpark. You have to be in the ballpark of the NIL deals. And that's where Clemson's lacking right now. And that's where institutionally we got to be better. And until we are, you're going to continue to see 6 decommits a class. You're going to continue to see the recruiting slip. Because why have we suddenly slipped from, the 8 to 12 range to all of a sudden we're 30? We ain't been 30 since 2009.
Yep.
We got to stop pretending like it doesn't matter. It does matter. And for a team that hangs its hat on high school recruiting, you can't be ranked 30th because you don't compete in the transfer portal as of yet. Now, Clemson may start pivoting to the transfer portal out of necessity, but as of yet, we don't. So if we're not going to compete in the transfer portal, we certainly can't be ranked 30th overall in recruiting.
Nope.
That's not going to work. That's going to get you to be in a full fringe bowl team in a couple years. And I know that's not what Clemson fans want to hear, but You got a couple recruiting classes down in the 30s, the 40s. You're going to be a mid-level ACC team pretty quickly. I'm just saying. That's my opinion.
Yep. 100%, man. And we're not here to like doom and gloom and say, but like this was the last thing that you wanted to happen.
Yeah.
And we're not surprised that Clemson lost commits in this class. Like I don't the days of Clemson going, multiple years with like 4 or 5 cycles without having a decommit. Those days are over. You're going to have kids flip for money. Like everybody is having kids.
Yeah. There's too much money in college football now.
Yeah.
And you can wave money in kids' faces now legally. So that's not, those days are over. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But the difference is when Georgia loses a kid, okay, yeah, that sucks. But they also have the cachet to go flip somebody of at least comparable quality from somebody else, or pull a kid or an uncommitted kid of comparable quality from somebody else. Like that's that's what the game. I mean, you're seeing it right now. It's been flip season basically this entire past month. Like just kids flipping 5-star bona fide #1 overall recruits flipping for $12 million NIL deals. So I mean, it's happening all over the place. And I don't think Clemson is. I mean, obviously we don't think that Clemson is ever going to be that kind of program where they can spend $10 million on a quarterback like that. No, you don't have the monetary resources for that. You don't have the alumni base. You don't have the support for that. Like that's a pipe dream. But you have to be able to be competitive in this space, and be able to not lose kids to Georgia Tech, like multiple top 100 kids to Georgia Tech, Duke, UNC. Like, you can't have that happen.
Absolutely. Guys, check out the official Voice of College Football X account. I'm going to put it up on your screen right now. Give me 1 second. All right, go check out the Voice of College Football X account for your official account of the Voice of College Football, the best in discussion, debate, and analysis without an off season. Here is where you will find all of your updates on the Voice of College Football brand, the umbrella of channels that we have. They put all sorts of updates, post live streams, and tons of information over there. Jordan, you are a big fan of Twitter. You post a lot of stuff over there. So talk a little bit about the Voice of College Football X account, and your personal X account as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Please follow the Voice of College Football account. If you guys are active on X/Twitter, I'm always going to call it Twitter, but they post, they post the daily and weekly live show schedules for all channels within the Voice of College Football Network. You can find they post all sorts of trivia, all sorts of information. So I think it's a great account to follow if you are in the Voice of College Football Network and you like to listen to our shows. It's a great way. It's a great follow, and there's a lot of interesting insights. So I suggest giving it a follow, and also follow me if you are on X at Jobo JOBO 0209 on X. I think we need to find out a way. Is there a way to make sure that it stay up, our name stay up? But you can see it right next to my name underneath my head. So feel free to give me a follow if you want to. And I post a lot about Clemson. I live tweet during the game. I'll do a little bit of trolling. So if you like that, I do partake in that a little bit. But yeah, go check it out if you guys are on there. You're muted. Oh, it even has the mute button on it.
Thank you. Absolutely. Check out Jobo 0209 over on X or Twitter, whatever you call it, and the official Voice of College Football X account. Give them both a follow and tell them that you heard about it from the Clemson channel at the Voice of College Football. All right, the Citadel recap, Jordan. Not a whole lot to talk about here. Obviously, Clemson goes out and beats the Citadel this past Saturday in Death Valley pretty handily. The offense played well. All the seniors got an opportunity to play, essentially. Run defense, pretty unacceptable for the Tigers, not going to lie. That was one of the black eyes of the game, if you will. Obviously, Citadel came out and ran a lot more triple option concepts than they probably had all season, but nothing that Clemson should not have been prepared for. If you heard Dabo Swinney's press conference leading into the game, he expected that the Citadel would do that. They did, and it worked. Clemson gives up over 280 yards rushing against the Citadel. That's one of the big negatives of the game. Positive is obviously Clemson won, right? Clemson gets out with a W. Not only do they get out with a W, but most, if not all, their seniors got to get an opportunity to play in the game. And we got out of there relatively healthy. So any thoughts on the Citadel game as you gotten a chance to go back and watch it? Anything that we didn't cover in the post game that you would like to cover now?
Yeah, not much. I mean, we hit on a lot of what we saw. It was a very straightforward game to watch. Offensively, you did what you were supposed to do, ran the ball well, hit explosive plays in the passing game. Cade was sharp in limited action. Phil Malfa gave him a couple carries and got him out there, got him over 1,000. That was good. First 1,000-yard rushing season since Will Shipley in 2022. I believe this is I made a whole tweet about it. I believe this is the 14th 1,000-yard rushing season of the century for Clemson. So we've had a lot of really good running backs and a lot of good really rushing seasons. Just happy for Phil. Hopefully he's been dealing with an injury the last few weeks. Hopefully, he took this week to just kind of rest. Other than that, offensive line, you got to see Tristan Lay and some of Marcus Tate back, or they're just Tristan Lay. I think I'm having a brain fart now, but your offensive line is more or less healthier. You didn't have a lot of guys practice during the week. Last week, so that was good but it was good to see guys rotate in and play well. And then Jay Haynes, we talked about him a lot. You got to see him. You see the burst, you see the athleticism that we talked about in the offseason. We felt like he was ready to potentially ready to step into a running back 2 role. Hopefully. I know it was the Citadel, but you can see the burst and you can see the athleticism and the change of pace he brings to the running back room. So hopefully you see him a little bit more. I don't expect him to be Phil Maffa is your best back. He's very clearly your best back. So when I say that, I don't want him eating into Phil Maffa's carries like by that much. But I definitely want to see them get out more. Defensively, just run game was pretty horrendous defending it. They didn't do a whole lot differently. And it wasn't like they were blowing you off the ball. You were just flat out playing poor assignment football, dive plays and speed options. Like you just weren't very gap sound. That was very disappointing. And that's been a trend with this defense. They just have not played to the level of their talent. This defense should have been a lot better this year. I don't feel any differently about that. I don't question the talent that we have up front. The youth in the secondary hasn't been the problem that we were worried it would be. But you've had really disappointing performances at linebacker at different points over the year. Obviously, you just a lack of depth in some spots, but statistically, this defense has just not been anywhere close to where it should have been. And that obviously I think points to some changes that need to be made on that side of the football. But won't dwell too much on it. It may hurt you this weekend. It might not. We'll see.
Yeah,
and then special teams, gross block.
Special teams, another kick blocked for special teams. Again, special teams continues
2 kicks
to be
blocked because you got a field goal and an extra point.
Yeah, field goal and extra point continues to be an issue for these Clemson Tiger special teams group, right? I think we've made it clear over the back half of the season, if you will, that changes need to be made in the offseason there. I don't trust in the coaching there. You can't tell me time and time again it's execution. At the end of the day, if it's execution over 5 or 6 games, it's got to be the way that it's being coached. So changes need to be made there in the special teams. As far as the Clemson game, obviously the defense left a lot to be desired, specifically in the run game. You can't give up the most yards that the Citadel has made all season and feel good about it. I don't care that they played option concept. I don't care that it's not something that you see all the time. At the end of the day, you got to be disciplined with your eyes. You got to fill your gaps. And it's just something that Clemson time and time again has failed at this season. Their rushing defense is not good. And it showed up again on Saturday. Fortunately, the offense had their way. And the defense was opportunistic when it came to turnovers. And the Citadel only mustered 14 points. However, that doesn't mean that it was a good defensive performance because it wasn't. So, I mean, that kind of is what it is. Shout out to Jay Haynes for his 5 carries for, I think, 118 yards, 2 touchdowns, averaging
ACC running back of the week.
Yeah, ACC running back of the week, average over 23 yards a carry. Shout out to him. He had a great game. A guy that we talked about a ton in the offseason about being a change of pace guy, and I think he proved that he has a place in this offense, right, going forward. Is he an every now and back? Probably not right now, but I think he's a guy that could develop into that given another offseason. We'll see where he's at, right? But definitely as explosive as we thought he was preseason. Definitely proved that against the Citadel, albeit the Citadel, you like to see that first team offense get that momentum going, especially after the second half of production they put up against Pitt, which was absolutely abysmal. It was nice to see the first team offense go out there, get some momentum. The second team come out there, do a lot of the same, so on and so forth. All the seniors got out there, the purple unis. It was a great day. But the defense just was disappointing. It is what it is. Big challenge for them coming up this week, and we'll get into that here shortly. But make sure you guys check Clemson Live on all your favorite audio streaming platforms, wherever you get your podcasts. Search Clemson Live. All of our long-form content is there. Give it a rate, review, subscribe. And that would be greatly appreciated if you guys would do that. Moving right along, Jordan, to the injury report. We got some key guys to talk about this week. Some guys that we absolutely need to be back for this South Carolina game that we are going to preview in the next segment of the All In Show. But before that segment, we're going to talk about the injury report. None other than Jake Brenningstool, a guy that we expected to play last week, but according to Dabo, had a bit of a hamstring issue. He couldn't go, so they held him. We need Jake Brenningstool back this week against this South Carolina defense. Absolutely need him as a weapon across the middle. We're going to need him as a weapon in the red zone. Tristan Lay, Marcus Tate, the 2 offensive linemen that have been out for several weeks now. We need those guys to come back. We have not seen those guys in any sort of playing time in the past couple of weeks. I've heard that Tristan Lay is much further along than a Marcus Tate. Honestly, I think we need both of them to be back. Certainly, we need Tristan Lay. Would love to get Marcus Tate back as well and have our full slate of offensive line. Would love to see all of our guys to go back to their primary positions and not have to be moved every which way, specifically against the South Carolina defense that we're going to face this week that is super aggressive, that has a pretty elite defensive line. It's going to come after the quarterback. On defensive side of the ball, you got a Wade Woodaz, a guy that's been out for a couple weeks now with a thigh contusion. We need him back this week. This is a team that's going to try to establish the running game. Wade Woodaz is going to be an integral part of stopping that running game, and we need his experience back along with an R.J. Mickens. R.J. Mickens probably the most important player to get back on defense with his run support and his ability to tackle in open space and what he's displayed all season long. He's going to be probably one of the biggest pieces on defense as far as stopping this South Carolina rushing attack. Hoping we get R.J. Mickens back, hoping we get Wade Woodaz back, Tristan Lay, Marcus Tate, and Jake Brenningstool. Jordan, your thoughts on Clemson's injury situation heading into rivalry week against South Carolina in the Valley?
Yeah, still pretty banged up. As you can see, I mean, those are all key guys. Not to mention DeMonte Capehart, who, maybe it's kind of the answer that Dabo gave after the Citadel. We'll see. He's kind of day to day. So like it's you're in a situation where you definitely need those guys back. I think most importantly offensively is having Tristan Lay and Marcus Tate back healthy if you can. As you mentioned, this is the bet. I said this. I honestly, I've been saying this for a while. South Carolina will be the best defensive line you've played this year. Better than Georgia's, better than Virginia Tech's, better than Pitt's. This is the best defensive line you faced in terms of quality across the board and depth. So I think having those guys back is massive because they are that left side of the line. You're going to be in. You might be in for a long day if you're not protecting Cade's blind spot. That's for sure. So getting those guys back is a big deal. Jake Brenningstool, you need him back. I think he has, when he has played, he, as of late, been pretty underwhelming. He needs to shake back and get some of his mojo back and play a little bit better, like he was earlier in the year. R.J. Mickens, like you mentioned, getting him back would be massive as well. For the defense. But yeah, the injury is where it is. Whoever plays is whoever plays, and you got to have a next man up mentality because, you're not the only team that's dealt with injuries this year. And that's, you're going to some guys are going to have to step up in some big ways because there's no chance you're going to get all of those guys back playing 100%. That's just not going to happen. So you're going to need some guys to come in and play.
Look, it's week 14 of the college football season. There's not a single college football team out there that is fully healthy, including our Clemson Tigers. We're a little banged up. The one point that worries me is that offensive line, because it is your entire left side of the offensive line. And we'll get into some of these pass rushers and some of these defensive linemen that the South Carolina Gamecocks have here in the next episode, or the next segment. But certainly going to be a point of emphasis for the Tigers to get some of these key guys back, at least healthy enough to contribute in the South Carolina game. It's going to be something to watch as we get later into the week. Obviously, we're doing this show on Monday. We normally do it on Wednesday, so we usually have a much better grasp on what Clemson's injury situation is heading into the game on Saturday. This week, we just don't know. We don't know how these guys are going to look, who's going to be back, who's not going to be back, and how it's going to affect the game. So, we're we're just kind of going out on a whim here when we do our score predictions later and when we do our preview in the next segment of this show. But before we get into the South Carolina Clemson breakdown, the college football show with Mark Rogers, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Go check it out on the main channel, the Voice of College Football. Let them know that the guys over on the Clemson channel sent you over there. Again, the college football show with Mark Rogers, Monday through Friday, starting at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Jordan, it is that time. It is rivalry week. It is hate week. It is Clemson versus South Carolina, one of the most heated rivalries in college football, hands down. Obviously, happening this week in Death Valley, South Carolina, a noon kickoff. Don't let that fool you. The Valley will be rocking. According to the AP poll, it'll be number 12 Clemson versus number 16 South Carolina. Clemson comes in toting an overall 73-43-4 record over the South Carolina Gamecocks, winning the last 8 of 9 games. The last loss, unfortunately, at home in 2022. We remember that all too well. Dabo Swinney overall 9-6 against South Carolina. Shane Beamer comes in 1-2 against Clemson. It's going to be a special day in the Valley, man. It always is when South Carolina comes to town. Just give your maybe some overall thoughts on the rivalry, what it means to you, and some of your greatest memories when it comes to the Clemson-South Carolina rivalry game.
Yeah, man. It's second. Honestly, it's second to none in terms of the passion and the hatred that these schools have for each other. Obviously, I'm speaking from a biased standpoint, but I don't think like the rest of the nation realizes, like how much, these two schools and fan bases despise each other and the history involved with it. It's been a part of my childhood and my life, but just since forever. I in terms of favorite memories, the catch, I don't remember that, or the push off, as South Carolina fans like to call it.
Yeah, they remember it wrong. It was the catch by one Rod Gardner. It's not a push off. I don't care.
I had to call it. I had to give it the other name because we are broadcasting to the.
That's true.
The South Carolina, but it is what
Welcome
it is.
in all South Carolina fans that are tuning into this show. They probably already clicked off by now. Let's be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in retrospect, Dabo's first win as an interim in 2008, that was a very, very special game. Obviously, you didn't have much success after, immediately after that.
Right.
That'll always stick in my memory.
Let's not talk about that.
Yeah. Deshaun Watson breaking the streak. I don't remember. I don't remember the brawl either. Unfortunately, that was
a crazy game. That was unhinged.
Some of those more iconic moments. I do remember the 2006 loss. Now that will forever, like that's one of my earliest memories of being a fan, like a conscious fan, I should say, like where I was like. I wasn't just like watching. It's cool colors, and like I knew some of the players. That one will stay. That's one of my earliest memories. That memory, that game, and then the 2007 loss to Boston College. Like those two games, like young Jordan Bowman. Like those basically ruined my life back in those days. But. Some other memories. Deshaun Watson ending the streak on a torn ACL in 2014 after 5 long years of misery. That was pretty special. Artavis Scott went insane in that football game.
Yes. Yep.
56-7. I mean, what is there to say? That was just a ass whooping.
63-17.
I don't remember that one either because I'm too young to remember that one.
It was a great one, man. 63-17 was a great one.
My first Clemson football game was the A&M opener in 2005. That was right after that was right after a couple of years after 63-17. But Charlie was still the quarterback. But that was that will 56-7 will forever remember. I'll remember 2017 Hunter Renfrow, that play where he broke like a million tackles on the way to the end zone. This, and I'm only naming the only negative one I mentioned
Williams,
was the 06
where he carried the DB on his back.
56. Yeah, that was 56-7. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
That was epic.
I still feel bad for that DB, Jamarcus King. That was his name. He was I think he was like a JUCO, like he was a guy that came up from JUCO. But I felt so horrible for him. I've never seen a single player get abused the way that he got abused by Mike Williams that night.
Yeah, Mike Williams was going at him, dude.
Yeah, just if someone carried me into the end zone, I would have hung out the cleats, man.
Yeah, man, I gotta go. Hey, coach, take my helmet. I'm not doing this no more.
No, man. But yeah, I mean, this, without rambling too much, this rivalry has meant a ton to me. My time as a student, I got to witness some really, really fun. Those were fun games for me, for sure. And
look, man, it's a heated rivalry. And for me, growing up in Charleston, South Carolina, there's a lot of Gamecock fans down there, dude. So dealing with them year in and year out, that 5-year period was not fun for me down there. But just tons of memories from this rivalry, to the brawl, to the 63-17. Tons of great memories, some heartbreaking memories at the same time, but. Again, Clemson leads the series 73, 43, and 40. South Carolina would literally have to win 30 years in a row in order to catch up to the Clemson Tigers. We all know that's not going to happen. There's no chance, South Carolina, man. I don't care how many times you chant SEC. You're just not as good as Clemson. So get over it. I don't care what patch you wear on your chest. You're not as good as Clemson. You never will be. It is what it is. You got Dollar Store Dabo Swinney over there as head coach. I don't care how mad it makes you. You went and hired a less qualified Dabo Swinney. So it's rivalry week. It's hate week. Here comes all the trash talk. I don't care how mad it makes you. Welcome all the South Carolina fans. I encourage you to get into the chat and trash talk yourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I got another. And speaking of dunking on them with trivia, Clemson has more wins in Columbia than South Carolina has wins total in the series. Fun fact. I mean, of course, part of that is because the game used to be played in Columbia every year, but
it did. I mean, up until
which is even worse that you're down 30 in the series when you basically had a free home game every year.
It used to be played at the state fair in your hometown.
Yep.
Until 1960, and we still dominated you. Good Lord, South Carolina. You're freaking terrible. Yeah, man. What an embarrassment to the state of South Carolina. But whatever.
Nice, man.
I guess every
you know what? I should have man, you know what would have been great is if we had Dabo's speech, the real Carolina, like that whole spiel. If we had that loaded up and we just played it real quick, but then South Carolina fans would go and say, "Well, he said that, and they lost, and that was during the 5-year losing streak." Well, sometimes we just had to give it a little bit of time. It had to marinate before it came to fruition. That's the way I look at it. Like
That's right.
He saw the
That's
vision.
Right.
He knew what was coming.
Hey, he made good on his promise. He made good on his
did.
promise. He's won 2 national titles since, and you haven't done anything since. Par for the course for being a South Carolina fan. All right, Jordan, all the trash talk out of the way. Let's get into the game. Let's talk a little bit about this South Carolina offense coming into Death Valley this Saturday, obviously led by none other than Lenore Sellers. 17 total touchdowns on the season, 6 interceptions, 2,100 yards. Rocket Sanders is the leading rusher for the Gamecocks, coming in 821 yards, 11 touchdowns, 5-yard average per carry. His biggest games obviously went over 100 yards in the LSU game, and the Texas A&M game, and the Vandy game. And then the leading receiver is none other than tight end Joshua Simmons, 31 receptions for 453 yards and 6 touchdowns. They are the 50th total ranked offense with 407 yards per game, 5.9 yards per play. What are your thoughts on this South Carolina offense? Obviously, the QB run is going to be in play. They are going to try to establish the run against this Clemson defense. We all know that this Clemson defense has struggled against the run. This team has 489 yards rushing. They got I'm trying to look at their offense. 470 yards rushing per game, 6.5 yards per play. What are your thoughts on this South Carolina?
Sorry, 470 yards per game. That's historic.
No. Sorry.
I'm messing.
I'm trying to look at my stats here. Go ahead. What's your thoughts on this South Carolina offense? Obviously, Rocket Sanders, they're going to try to establish him as RB1 against Clemson. They're going to try to run the ball down Clemson's throat. He's got 821 yards on the season, 11 touchdowns. Lenore Sellers is obviously second in rushing with 489 yards. So how do you see this South Carolina offense challenging this Clemson defense, who ranks 55th in rushing defense, giving up 140 yards per game and 4.36 yards per rush?
Yeah. I mean, when you look at the South Carolina offense, I think it starts, like you mentioned, with their run game. They have 2 really physical running threats in Rocket Sanders and, of course, Lenore Sellers. Rocket he was a former 1,000-yard back at Arkansas a couple seasons ago. Had some injury concerns and issues last season. Transfers into South Carolina and has kind of had a revitalization. And he's been a big back for them. Physical, really good in open space, just a tough football player to bring down. And then Lenore Sellers, I mean, if you've watched any bit of Lenore Sellers, I mean, he's every bit 6'3", 245 pounds. And he can move.
Physical guy.
So
big physical runner. Rocket Sanders, big physical runner as well.
Yeah, and so that you have a rare combination. With Lenore, you have a rare combination of size and athleticism. I think for Clemson defensively, it's cliche, but stopping the run is first and foremost. You can if South Carolina has what they can get what they want in the running game, that's going to open everything else up for that offense, and it takes a lot of pressure off of Lenore, who has over the course of the season struggled at times as a passer, but has really come into his own in the last few games. So they've hit explosive passing plays, and he has created some of those by himself, just with his athleticism and his escapability and the difficulty it is to bring him down, even when you do get to him in the pass rush. So stopping the run, eliminating, doing what you can to neutralize Rocket Sanders, and kind of force the offense to go through Lenoris a little bit more, and kind of take those safety blankets away from him. I think that safety blanket away from him is a big deal for Clemson, as far as whether or not they want to be successful defensively in this game. I think their offensive line has gotten better over the year. I think in run blocking, is certainly they've been pretty solid this year. And so, you're going to have to win your matchups up front. They're very young. They are a little bit more experienced than they were last season, but they're still very young. And they're also healthier than they were last season. So, it's going to be a tougher matchup in the trenches. And so you're going to have to win your fair share of matchups, and you have to make sure you have to, keep them behind the sticks, because if they're consistently ahead of the chains, they are very much a momentum offense. They could either go 3 and out, or they could put together just an efficient, 6-7 play drive, a couple of explosive plays, and they're all of a sudden they're in the end zone. So, you have to limit those. You have to limit you have to win first down. I think most importantly, 100%. In order to win this game.
Yeah, look, I think you laid it out perfectly, Jordan. And Clemson's key to win this game on defense is limiting South Carolina's productiveness on first and second down. You got to win first and second down if you're Clemson's defense. This is a team that's going to try to establish the run. They run the ball very well. They're a run-first team. Obviously, they got Rocket Sanders. That's a big physical running back. They got Lenore Sellers. That's a big physical quarterback that is not afraid to get into the running game. Oh, and by the way, Clemson has struggled against quarterbacks that can get out on the edge and hurt them with their legs. Clemson comes in as the number 55 rush defense, giving up 140 yards per game, 4.3 yards per carry. They come in as the number 53 passing defense, giving up 210 yards per game and 6.25 yards per attempt. So, look, this is a Clemson defense that has struggled to this point in the season. The key for them is to limit the explosive plays on the ground for the South Carolina offense. They have to win first and second down. They have to force Lenore Sellers into passing situations, obvious passing situations on third down. Come in, get him, speed him up, and make him beat you with his arm. That's Clemson's avenue on defense to have a successful day against the South Carolina offense. They're going to have to be physical up front. They're going to have to be gap sound. They're going to have to limit the explosive run play against South Carolina. And I think if you can win on first and second down, if you're Clemson's defense, force South Carolina into more third and long situations than they want to be in, I think you have a lot of success against Lenore Sellers in drop back situations with your secondary as they've played so far this season. I like Clemson's chances when Lenore Sellers has to drop back and beat you with his arms. I don't like Clemson's chances if they allow South Carolina to get the running game going early and often. I think it turns into a long day for the Clemson defense if they allow that to happen.
Yeah, and when you get to Lenoris into obvious passing situations, you've got to first of all you need to get to him, because any quarterback you give time to throw in the pocket, which at times Clemson has lacked in pass rush. Hopefully, moving Peter Woods back inside and the development of Jaheim Lawson on the edge, hopefully will help some of that, but
right.
You got to get home and you've got to tackle. You've got to finish. You can't arm tackle. This is not a South Carolina offense where they're just going to go down on first touch. Like Lenore Sellers will break as many arm tackles as possible and escape and make a 50-yard play down the field because you weren't just fundamentally sound. So I think that's the biggest thing as well. As far as their weapons on the outside, they have a couple of really, interesting pieces. I think you mentioned Josh Simon, their tight end. I think that is their best pass catching weapon overall. Yeah. Just experienced football player, really, really great athlete. he's going to be a problem. So you need to, I think, you need to be wary of where he is, because he's been a safety blanket for Lenoris in the passing game, and he's been a conduit for big plays as well. The receivers, I think they have a couple of nice pieces. Jared Brown, Mazio Bennett, the true freshman, has come along as the season has gone on and made some plays. Nick Harbor even has made a couple of plays as of late, the former 5-star. Mm-hmm. But I think truly, I think that if there's any offensive weapon in the passing game that scares me, I think it's that tight end Josh Simon. He's very good. He's a very good football player. So limiting knowing where he is at all times, I think will give you your best key, your best chance of success. Because I don't think the rest of their receivers are, world beaters. So you got to win your matchups. I think you have the corners that match up, but like I said, the tight end can be the great equalizer in the passing game. So knowing where Josh Simon is at all times is going to be important for this team defensively.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be super important for this Clemson defense. And switching gears to this Clemson offense versus this South Carolina defense. Obviously, the South Carolina defense comes in ranked number 13 in total defense. They come in ranked 12th in rushing defense, allowing 103 yards per game, 2.9 yards per carry. The Clemson offense comes in at number 6 for the total offense, 470 yards per game, 6.5 yards per play. But this South Carolina defense, we're going to start on the defensive line. And Kyle Kennard and Dylan Stewart. Kyle Kennard has 11.5 sacks. Dylan Stewart has 6.5 sacks on the season. This defensive line for South Carolina is going to be a big challenge for this Clemson offensive line, which is why it's so important for Clemson to get Marcus Tate and Tristan Lay back in this game. They got a ton of guys on defense that are playmakers. They got guys that are difference makers. They have been a really good defense so far this season, obviously coming in at number 13 for total defense. What's your thoughts on this South Carolina defense and some of the challenges that they're going to bring to this Clemson offense? This is a defense that's going to pressure Cade. Obviously, I mentioned the sack totals of both of their defensive ends. They're going to try to stop the run. They're going to challenge Cade and mix up some of the looks that he's given. They're going to try to confuse him. So what's your thoughts on how they match up? And will Clemson's offense be able to get enough done in this game and score enough points in order to get it done against the South Carolina defense?
Yeah, that is the question. I think ultimately that's where the game is won. I think for Clemson offensively is how well do you protect Cade? How healthy is your offensive line? Because not like I said, this South Carolina defensive line is the best you will have faced this year. Not just the two edge rushers either. They are very good on the interior. Alex Huntley, Tonka Hemingway, TJ Sanders, like that. That is a very good group of defensive tackles. They're very good pass rushers, not just run stuffers. Like they move really well. So this is a very complete, South Carolina defensive line. So you're going to have to be able to win your matchups or at least stalemate your matchups up front. And I think that's where that's where you have to win, because I think if you do that, if you protect Cade, I think there can be plays to be had on South Carolina's back end. They've given up some plays this year. They've been a stout defense overall, but if there's any weakness, it's definitely been in the secondary. They have guys that have given up some big plays, but they're very good. And they're also really athletic up front at linebacker, so that's something to be wary of as well. Demetrius Knight, Debo Williams, two really, really talented linebackers. So you're going to need to. It's a very, very it's a very experienced South Carolina defense overall that doesn't make a lot of mistakes, and they're not going to beat themselves. And so, you're going to have to earn your yards in this game, and you hope that you can create some coverage busts at times. It starts with being able to establish a little bit of the run game. You saw Missouri last weekend. You have some success running the football, and they very easily could have won that game. I think if that's Clemson should take a little bit from that game plan for sure. Give South Carolina some different looks running the football and kind of loosen it up. Force that defensive line and that front seven in general to defend you and not just pin their ears back and get after the quarterback. But yeah, this is the strength of their team for sure. It's been their bread and butter all season. Has kept them in every game basically.
Yep.
This is a very complete, experienced South Carolina defense. You're going to have to earn it against them.
Yeah, absolutely. This is one of the best defenses that Clemson will face on offense this year. You cannot become one-dimensional against this South Carolina defense. They will eat you alive. You got to establish the running game. You cannot just become a one-dimensional team. They'll pin their ears back. They'll come get Cade. They'll confuse them in coverage. They'll force them into mistakes. And it's just stuff that you cannot afford as a Clemson offense. And this is going to be a big test, not only up front, but this is going to be a big test for Cade. This is going to be a big test for the wide receivers. This is going to be a physical group out on the perimeter. They're going to jam the wide receivers. They're going to challenge them physically. So these guys are going to have to get off the ball. They're going to have to get open. They're going to have to give Cade windows to throw the ball as well. So it's going to have to be a team effort on offense. This has been South Carolina's calling card all season is their defense. And this is kind of the ultimate challenge, if you will, for this Clemson offense. And they're going to have a lot to prove this week because this South Carolina offense is not going to make it easy on Clemson. They're going to make it very difficult. Clemson is going to have to earn each and every yard that they get. So I'm interested to see how exactly this Clemson offense performs against a defense that on paper you don't technically match up well against, if we're being honest.
No, I agree. And I mean, with the situation you're at where you might not be 100% healthy on the left side of your line, like
right.
It's going to be tough sledding. And, South Carolina is going to take some, pages from, the Louisville playbook, even the Pitt playbook, the Virginia Tech playbook. They're going to man you up on the outside and they're going to make your, they have some young DBs. I mean, O'Donnell Fortune is the leader. He's one of the older guys in the room, but they have some younger guys. Judge Collier has been pretty solid for them. But they're going to, they have a lot of trust in their DBs. And so they're going to try, they're going to man you up on the outside and see if your receivers will win on the outside. You have the receivers to do it, but at times this year it's befuddled you for whatever reason. Until I see otherwise, that's going to be a point of concern for me. We'll see how much success they have. I think Cade's experience, I think, is going to have to be the thing that is the tipping point. I think, as 26 starts in, and you've seen how much he's grown as a quarterback. I think that's ultimately he's gonna have to bail you out and make you right even when you're wrong sometimes, and he's done that multiple times over the course of the season. And so offensive line, you got to hold up and like I said, if you can establish a running game, obviously that makes things a lot easier. But the receivers, you're going to have to they have to make plays. Can't have drops. The drops haven't been a problem for most of the season, but, ever since the Louisville game, it's just been, you just had guys not make plays at times. So drops cannot be a thing on Saturday, or you will, because you're not going to get many opportunities to score points. You're going to have to, especially for big plays, there's not going to be a ton of opportunities. So you gotta hit them when they're there.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree with everything you said, and we'll see how prepared this Clemson offense is. And it's not just on the Clemson offense. This Clemson defense is going to have to come to play. They're going to have to stop this South Carolina run and force Lenore Sellers into throwing situations as we outlined before. But if you guys have not already, please like this video. This is a live video. It really helps us out and gets it out to more people. Share the video. Subscribe to the channel. Me and Jordan do the All In Show year-round. It's normally on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. This week, we're doing it on Monday because of Thanksgiving. But traditionally, it's on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. year-round, regardless of the off-season. We are right here doing the All In Show. We also do a post-game live video immediately following every single Clemson game where we give you our live reaction to the game. So like the video, consider subscribing and hanging out with us for the long haul. And we would greatly appreciate that. Jordan,
Absolutely.
we have I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We have two super chats. I wanted to hit the two super chats because
my bad. I did not know we had super chats. So go ahead and hit those, and then
both from Zachariah. Thank you so much. Sorry for getting to him late. Hope you're still here. He says, I won this 5 betting on my shitty Cowboys. I'm begging Clemson to keep the state in their hands. Cade has to play his best game and shut down the run. Yes, absolutely. Cade is going to, a lot of offensive success in this game is going to fall on Cade, and defensively, stopping the run. Got to stop the run. And then he hits us with the $2. He says, one more super chat. Stomp this soft, trash, lame team. I like it. Yes, that's. Yeah. I hope
that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Appreciate that.
They better.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to
South Carolina Gamecocks out here, rattling off 5 wins in a row, got their chest puffed out like they something special when they know who owns this state by 30 games. So don't get it twisted, South Carolina. Just because you got a good defense this season doesn't mean you're anything special. Thank you, Zachariah, for the $2 super chat. Really appreciate you. And moving right along, Jordan, we've broken down the South Carolina preview. We've talked about the matchup. We've been transparent. We've been honest. And now it's time for the score prediction. And the game opened up at -3 for Clemson. Everybody knows you get roughly 3 points for being at home. So Vegas thinks this is a coin flip game. It's a pick 'em game. It's a whoever you like game. It opened at -3 for Clemson. It is now at -2.5. The over/under opened at 49.5, and it stays at 49.5. So Jordan, I know it's early in the week. I know we don't know who's playing yet. We haven't had all of our injury report updates yet as far as what Dabo Swinney's going to give us tomorrow and on his Wednesday press conference. But as we sit Monday night, 10 p.m., what's your score prediction for the Clemson, South Carolina game coming up this weekend in the Valley, 12 noon kickoff? What's your thoughts?
Well, I'm a big believer in the phrase that when somebody tells you who they are or shows you who they are, believe them.
Wise words, Jordan. Wise words.
Yes, very wise words. When it comes to Clemson this season, they have not responded well when they've played teams that play the way that South Carolina has and has the talent level that South Carolina has. Georgia game, obviously. Louisville, and even a couple of games you won. Pitt game,
Virginia Tech game.
And Virginia, you didn't score in the first half. This team, while talented, I still really like the roster overall has not played up to their ability at times this year. And they've exceeded expectations in some ways, and they've fallen way short of expectations in others. Yes. But overall, as a football team, this is a very Jekyll and Hyde team. And when they've played, their highest of highs have been really, really fun this year. That's no doubt. But their lows have been catastrophic, whether it's 27 unanswered points against or 28 unanswered points in the second half against Georgia, only scoring 3 points on offense in the entire game. Whether it's completely just getting throttled on your home field by Louisville in a game where the game was over like late in the third quarter, and the points you did score were when they finally took their foot off the gas defensively and was just playing to run the clock out.
A night game, mind you.
In the Valley. Yeah. Pitt, you're playing a team that is on their last, they're on their backup quarterback. Injuries everywhere on the offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
You need Cade basically had to will you to a win on that last drive after having 27 yards of offense in the second half.
Yeah. You essentially call a lucky draw play that hits for a 50-yard touchdown.
It was a great call.
Sure.
You shouldn't have been in that situation against a team that was against the ropes. They had already lost 2 games in a row previously. They were, I said, they were on their backup quarterback. I don't believe it. I cannot believe in this team to play their best football in this game with what I've seen this year, when I've expected them to. And that's why I cannot pick them to win this football game right now. I think South Carolina, from a matchup standpoint, presents a lot of problems, particularly defensively. But offensively, they've improved a lot, and this Clemson defense has been porous and had lapses against anybody, basically, this year. So with that being said, as much as it kills me to say this, and as many Clemson fans are going to hate me in the comments, I can't pick Clemson to win this football game. I think they will be competitive. I don't expect this to be a blowout situation. I don't expect this to be a Louisville situation. I think they'll show up. It's a rivalry game. I think they will show up.
Yeah.
But they have shown too many times over the course of this season that they cannot play their best football for an extended period of time and play a complete football game for an extended period of time and be consistent. So I'm going Clemson 24, South Carolina 27. I think South Carolina. I think, like I said, I think it's a competitive football game. I think Clemson gets their opportunities, but I think there have been too many lapses defensively, especially, and the matchup problems that South Carolina presents, defensively, where the trajectories of both teams right now, I can't pick Clemson to win this football game based on what I've seen, especially in this back half of the season for Clemson. So,
yeah.
I might feel differently. I might wake up on Saturday morning and be like, you know what? The more I look at it, I think Clemson's winning this football game. But I can't. They have not given me any reason to believe they should win this football game this year. All right, that was long, but go ahead.
No, I like it, Jordan. I like all the reasons you pointed out. And look, I'm going to be honest with you, Jordan. This matchup for Clemson, is probably one of the worst matchups that we've had all season. What South Carolina does well is run the football. What we don't do well defensively is stop the run. Pretty much all season. Highlighted by last week, giving up 280 yards to the Citadel. I don't care what kind of option concepts they were running. We have an offensive line that is hampered by injuries. Pretty much our left side of our offensive line is gone. We haven't seen them play in a couple weeks. We don't know if they're going to play this season. And we've had to play musical chairs along the offensive line. What does South Carolina do well? They rush the passer well. Kyle Kennard, 11.5 sacks. Dylan Stewart, 6.5 sacks. They stop the run well. What are they going to do against Clemson? They're going to try to stop the run. They're going to stop Phil Maffa from affecting the game. And they're going to try to put pressure on the Clemson passing game, confuse Cade Klubnik into making mistakes. And that's going to be their game plan coming into the game. This is a matchup nightmare for the Clemson Tigers. Not going to lie. It's pretty straightforward. We laid out all the reasons in the preview. I think we covered them well. Clemson is -2 because they're playing in the Valley. And with all of that said, all I can say is that I'm going to pick with my heart here. I'm not super confident in what I'm about to say, but I'm going to pick Clemson to win this rivalry game.
I like
for
it.
none other reason that I'm trying to speak it into existence. I need this Clemson Tiger defense to stand up and stop this rushing attack and force Lenore Sellers to beat them with his arm because, frankly, I don't think he's capable. And for that reason, I'm going to pick Clemson 24, South Carolina 20. Clemson takes hate week. Clemson takes the rivalry once again, improves to 74-43-4.
I'm so relieved.
I don't feel great about it. I'm not going to lie, but I got to pick my Tigers here. I got to hope that this defense stands up, that we figure out a way to limit this rushing attack from Rocket Sanders and Lenore Sellers, and we get it done. 24-20, picking Clemson to win. That's how I see it going.
I'm very relieved that you picked it because, we don't, guys, those of you that are new, like we don't talk about our predictions before the show. So neither one of us know where we're going with this. I was worried that both of us
I had it written here just for those of you that think I may have changed
flipped.
Yeah.
We don't,
because Jordan picked South Carolina to win. I did not. There it is right there.
Yeah. I'm so relieved because I would have felt gross if both of us had picked South Carolina on the show, like on our own
I told
show.
you at the beginning of the show, I had my pick. I didn't feel great about it, but we didn't share our picks before we hopped on here. So,
look, Clemson can win this football. Either team can win this football game. I think this is the most even the teams have been in over a decade. No doubt.
I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sit here as a Clemson fan and tell you that I'm super confident heading into the South Carolina game. I'm not. I think, just like I said, this is not a good matchup for Clemson. But
on paper, it's not.
On paper, it's not a great matchup. But I just believe that the Clemson defense is going to do enough. I believe we're going to get our offensive line back relatively healthy and be able to do enough to win this game, which is why I picked the Tigers. And if I'm wrong, I'll come on here in the post game. As you know, I'll be wrong here on the post game, and I'll eat my crow. But until then, I'm going to rock with my Tigers and hope that they get just enough done on the defensive side of the ball and just enough done on the offensive side of the ball to pull this game out. And I don't really care what happens after this game. I just really want Clemson to win this South Carolina game. Whatever happens with the playoffs is great. Whatever happens with the ACC championship is great. I'd trade it all to beat South Carolina this week, and I'm not even joking about that.
Dude, 100%. Like, if you gave me a choice of, okay, if you gave me a choice of, okay, you have to lose to South Carolina, but Miami loses to Syracuse, and you're guaranteed a win against SMU in the ACC championship, I'm still saying no. Give me the win over South Carolina.
I'm taking the win over South Carolina.
I'm taking the win
over
South
everything.
Carolina.
I'm taking the win over South Carolina because it just means that much in this state, and I think it'll mean that much in recruiting for Clemson. I don't think we can afford an ugly loss to a South Carolina team this year. With the way that recruiting's going, with the way the trajectory of the program is going, I don't think we can afford an ugly loss to a South Carolina team. So I'd pick a win over South Carolina over anything. That's just my personal opinion. I know there's a lot of Clemson fans out there that would pick an automatic playoff berth over a win against South Carolina. I'm just being honest with you. I wouldn't.
Yeah,
I just wouldn't.
Me either. Nope. All right. All right. Y'all in the chat, get your score predictions in.
Get your score predictions in. We'll talk about them in a second. Let's see. Anybody in the chat got a score prediction real quick before we move on?
I saw
user says South Carolina in a blowout. Okay.
But then he said Clemson in a blowout after. Right
I need a score. What?
He said Clemson in a blowout right after too. So I don't know.
You're confusing me. I don't know what's going on with you. Yeah, I'm gonna need a score prediction. All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on to BYOG or sell, Jordan. BYOG or sell. This is probably one of our most popular segments that we do each and every week. And let's go ahead and get in. We'll do one or two apiece here. And then we'll move on to the comment section for their BYOG or sells. And then we'll move on to regular comments for a little bit as well. Jordan, I'm going to let you kick it off tonight. Give me your BYOG or sell.
All right. BYOG or sell. Clemson limits South Carolina to less than 150 yards rushing.
Well, since I picked Clemson to win, that would be a requirement of Clemson winning. So I'm going to go BYOG on Clemson holding South Carolina to less than 150 yards rushing.
Okay. Dang, I picked a good number because I'm worried they're going to have success running the football in this game.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
I'm going to sell because I have no confidence in this defensive staff as it's currently constructed right now. I can't do it.
I know. I feel you. Everybody else is selling on it too. So yeah, I'm in the minority there. All right, Jordan. BYOG or sell. Phil Maffa goes for 80-plus yards rushing.
You know, I think Clemson is going to have – I think they're going to have a plan to run the football here. But you said Phil Maffa specifically, so that doesn't include like Cade. Yeah. Get to 80. Reluctant BYOG. I'll buy that. I'll buy it. I think they'll be able to generate enough to get him to 80. I don't know how much overall success, like how much explosiveness you're going to get out of him, but got to run the football.
Sorry, I'm writing down these BYOG ourselves to 150. All right.
Yes.
Your turn.
That's
Yep,
my
your
turn.
BYOG
All right.
yourself.
South Carolina, one thing I didn't talk about that Clemson, when it comes to the pass rush for Clemson in this game, South Carolina has been one of the worst teams in the country at allowing sacks. They are, I believe, they are 100. They're one of the worst in the Power Four. They've given up a lot of sacks this year. So with that being said, BYOG or sell, Clemson gets 3 or more sacks in this game.
Three plus sacks.
Yep.
I will
as a team.
I'll buy. I'll buy that Clemson gets 3 or more sacks. I think Clemson's going to be effective in rushing the passer against South Carolina. If Clemson hopes to win this game, they have to limit the explosive plays, specifically on first and second down. They got to get South Carolina into third and long. And if they do, I think that a TJ Parker, I think that a Jaheim Lawson, a Peter Woods can tee off against a Lenore Sellers on a obvious passing situations. And if Clemson's going to win, they have to get South Carolina into obvious passing situations. So for those reasons, I'll buy.
All right.
And I'm not a huge believer in South Carolina's offensive line.
Yeah, that is for sure the weakness of that team. They have not protected. And the thing but the thing that worries me is I think you're going to get to Lenore. Is like the question is, do you bring him down?
If you lose contain, yeah, that's the problem. Yep.
Well, and not even just losing contain, you get to him and he shakes you off because he's broken a lot of sacks this year. Like they probably could have given up more sacks than they have. He's a tough quarterback.
He's a big physical guy, and that's certainly a concern for sure.
All right, your turn.
All right, I'm going to go. Let's see. What do I got? I'm going to go BYOG or sell. Antonio Williams. +80 passing yards.
You mean receiving yards? Yeah.
Yeah. Receiving yards. Sorry.
I'll buy. I think he's going to be I think he's going to get a lot of targets in this game. Not just because he's coming back, he's trying to get redemption against South Carolina, the fumble a couple of years ago. Like, he is your best receiver. He's your number one guy. I think you're going to see Cade lean on him when things get a little tight. He's got to come. It's going to be up to Antonio. He's going to have to come through. Like, you got to catch. He's been reliable mostly this year, but he's had a couple of drops in the past few games. So I think I feel confident he's going to win his fair share of one-on-ones, and Cade's going to got to be accurate with the football, but got to finish and come down with it as well. I think he's going to get a good amount of targets in this game. I'll buy. I can get to 80.
Yeah, I agree. So let's turn it over to the comment section for their BYOG or sales, and then we'll get over to regular comments following that.
All right. Yeah, y'all get yours in there. Martin says BYOG or sell. Clemson has more sacks than Carolina. I will buy that. I think just because just from what both teams have been this year, Clemson has certainly protected their quarterback better. And Cade has he's avoided his fair share of sacks too, and created it on his own. So I'll buy, but South Carolina absolutely could have more sacks in this game. That defense, like I said, that defensive line is the best you'll have played. I just think that your offensive line against their defensive line matches up better than your defensive line against their offensive line. Like I think so. I think your offensive line is considerably better. Is essentially what I'm saying. So kind of evens out the playing field at least a little bit in terms of potential sacks and pressures allowed. All right. Zachariah says BYOG or sell. Parker wreaks havoc again and gets 2 sacks and a forced fumble. Ooh, that's lofty. 2 sacks and a forced fumble, I'll have to sell. Lenore Sellers has put the ball on the ground a good bit this year, but if you had said either of those 2 stats separately, by themselves, I'd be close. But getting 2 sacks and the forced fumble, that's a little
tough to get. That's tough to get. I'll sell. I'll sell on that as well. I don't think so.
Let's see. Okay, I understand. Okay, this isn't a BYU or so, but I understand what user was saying when he said South Carolina blow out Clemson. He thinks that whoever wins this game is winning by a lot.
Oh, okay. I got
so
you.
He doesn't think it's going to be a close game. He thinks either Clemson wins
whoever
by
wins is gonna blow the other team out. Gotcha.
Yeah. Tiger fan 24 BYG or sell Antonio 1.5 plus touch. Okay, so he's saying over under
1.5 touchdowns.
So essentially, buy or BYG or sell. What he's essentially saying is 2 or more touchdowns.
Yeah.
So buy or sell Antonio Williams 2 plus touchdowns. I'm selling. I think he's going to get a lot of targets, but 2 touchdowns. Yeah, and again, I picked 24-21 or 27-24. So both teams probably score 3 touchdowns each. Antonio has 2 of Clemson's touchdowns.
I'm going to sell.
Yeah, I'm going to sell that too. That seems like he could. I mean, he leads the team in receiving touchdowns. He has 11 or however many receiving. He's got 10 receiving touchdowns on the year. So, I mean, he has that many for a reason. But I don't know. In this game, they're gonna try to get him the football. South Carolina's defense knows they're gonna try to get him the football. I don't know. Maybe we'll see. Let's do a couple more. Isaac Smith, BYG or sell. Clemson allows 3+ sacks. I think they'll get sacked a couple. I'll sell. Well, mostly because I said that Clemson will have more sacks than South Carolina. So I guess I'm going to tell because
I think Cade will be smart, and if he gets pressure, I think he'll throw the ball away. He'll find ways to get rid of the ball.
And I think that's. and I think that's where this game has really, where this game might hinge and where Clemson has that advantage is the experience that you have at quarterback. I think Lenoris has made a lot of wow plays this year, and then at other times this year he's looked like a freshman. Now, if you can get him to make more of those freshman mistakes and not the wow, oh my God, look how talented he is plays, then that'll be the difference. If you can force him, into some uncomfortable spots where he tries to make a play that's not there, that might be the difference. Where Cade might not force a ball into double coverage, or he still needs to learn how to throw the ball away sometimes. But Cade has been a lot smarter with the football than Lenoris has this year. So.
Yeah, I just think Cade has taken care of the football really well this season. He's only got 4 interceptions on the season, right? He's got 29 touchdown passes and 4 interceptions, 366 attempts on the season. So in 366 attempts, he's only thrown 4 interceptions. So I trust Cade way more in high-pressure situations, taking care of the football. I know he's still made mistakes this season as far as holding on to the ball too long and taking unnecessary sacks. But he's done a much better job this season of putting the ball in harm's way. And I don't think he does it this week. So I think he'll play smart. He'll get rid of the ball. He won't throw unnecessary passes into situations where it could result in turnovers.
Yep. I'm with you. Tiggs with a sore spot. BYU or Sell Clemson has no block kicks.
Sell.
Yeah, it feels illegal. It feels illegal to buy that. So
no sane person can pick buy on that. There's no way, unless you're just like allergic to money. Yeah. Like there's no way where there be any sort of prop bet in the world where you could bet, where you would ever bet Clemson to not have a block kick.
Yeah,
it's
like weed in the state of South Carolina. It's illegal to buy.
That's a good one. Jordan.
Jay says BYU or Sell. Clemson goes for it on 3+ 4th downs in the game. That's a good one.
3+ 4th downs.
3+ 4th downs. I'll buy.
God, I hope not.
You know what? I'm going to buy that because I do think there will be points in this game where you're in that kind of no man's land territory where South Carolina kind of bows up. They get a stop on 3rd down. It's like 4th and 2, 4th and 1, 4th and 2, and you're at the South Carolina 40, 41, 42.
What do you do? Bring in the heavy package?
Potentially.
You bring in Peter Woods and Peyton Page and all those dudes. Yeah. All right. Well, I hope not. I'm going to sell because I hope the game's not that close.
BYU or Sell 2+ on sportsmanlike conduct penalties. On Clemson, I don't think so. They've been a pretty disciplined
game.
Team.
I'll buy. It's a rivalry week, so
yeah,
it'll probably happen.
Well, we'll see.
But I mean, both teams got. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. South Carolina's been the more undisciplined team this year. They've racked up a lot of penalties in some games, but so potentially. All right. I think that'll do it for BYOG or Sell. I don't want to. We have a lot more, but
let's move on from that.
Let's because we're already hitting it. We yapped for a really long time tonight. let's get some of the regular comments in.
Hey, before we get to the regular comments, you guys, we have 38 people in the live chat right now. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We've already been on for 2.5 hours. So if you guys could please help us out with hitting that like button, consider subscribing. And if you want to be sure that your comment and or question is responded to during this live show, we don't have very long left in the show. But if you want to be sure that your comment and or question gets responded to, hit that super chat feature. It'll support what me and Jordan do here on the All In Show, and your support will be greatly appreciated. All right, Jordan, let's get to the comments.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. SEC Dog, our resident Georgia fan, he says South Carolina is going to start the game playing zone. I'm sure Clemson knows that, probably 7-0 off the bat. We'll see. So much goes into this that we all realize.
Yeah,
I don't know. I actually don't know their splits as far defensively as far as zone and man. I could go on Pro Football Focus and look right now, but I don't feel like doing all that. But I don't know. For Clemson, just from how their opponents have played them this year, especially the back half of the season, they've kind of played you in different variations of the same way. Like I said, man you up on the outside, get lots of pressure, and it seemed, and especially with Pitt, when they sold out to stop the run, that was a point of emphasis, and Clemson didn't respond well in that second half. I don't know if you'll see South Carolina do that. They have not sold out to stop the run, but they've been a good team at stopping the run. They may not feel like they have to load the box. So maybe that means that gives Cade maybe a little bit more time. They're not sending 6-7 guys at a time every play. But I don't know their splits in zone and man. I also don't know their blitz rate. But from what I've watched, they don't blitz like a whole lot. They do blitz a good bit, but like they're an aggressive defense. But they're not Pitt level aggression, like corners on islands every play. Like we're sending pressure from all sorts of South Carolina will lean on their defensive line to win up front when they feel like they need to, and drop guys into coverage. Let's see. John says, I don't expect to see backup running backs much because pass blocking is so critical in this game. Yeah, I agree. I don't think you'll see a ton of, Jay Haynes, for example, for Clemson. I think maybe in a couple of packages here or there. I would like to see some two-back stuff. Now, that would be cool. We have not done that a lot this year for some reason, even though I get why they haven't, because Phil Moffitt has been so good this year. And,
Right.
it's hard to take him off the field or have him share the backfield with somebody else and take a receiver or a tight end off. But I don't know. I feel like that would make for some good, at least a drive here or there. You have a couple of packages just to give South Carolina a different look, because that, just historically when Clemson has, done a lot of 21 personnel, they've been able to scheme up some creative stuff off of it. So maybe we'll see a couple of things, but I would like to see it at least once or twice. But I definitely think you do need to give Phil Moffa his share of carries if he's healthy, or at least close to healthy. Els King says Cade needs time in the pocket. 2 spies on Sellers, 2 spies on Rocket Sanders. Clemson pulls. I don't think dedicating 2 guys to 2 different players is a recipe for success.
No, I don't think you get it done that way. But certainly limiting Rocket Sanders and limiting Lenore Sellers is going to be a key point of emphasis for this Clemson defense. No doubt about that.
This
you
is
cannot afford to put that many assets towards those two guys.
Yeah, no.
And still
nobody does. This isn't this isn't Madden. Like you can't. I'm gonna just put two. No, I was playing college football 25 the other day, and I played a dude online, and he had 3 QB spies. I was playing with Alabama. He had 3 QB spies on Jalen Milroe.
Jeez.
Like what? Like that kind of stuff. That's so funny to me. Like it would. I'm like, good Lord, man! Like it's not that hard to stop. You don't need to do all that. SEC Dog says, I think Cade has a bigger turnover rate than that is definitely not true, especially if he gets drilled a few times. No, Cade has not been anywhere remotely close to a turnover machine this year. Lenore Sellers, as far as taking care of the football, has been one of the worst in the Power Four. But he's also he's also grown a lot. A lot of his turnovers were earlier in the year. So I mean, with that caveat, but. No, I cannot agree. Maybe if this was last year, yeah, absolutely. But no, not this season.
Cade's done a really good job of taking care of the football outside of, kind of that fluke fumble that he had with the rush. He hasn't fumbled the ball this season. Again, only 4 interceptions on the season and over 300 dropbacks. I don't see him turning the ball over a ton versus South Carolina suddenly when that's not what he's shown so far this season.
Yeah, Els King points out that Cade's 250 yards away from 3,000 yards. Yep, absolutely. That would be the first time a Clemson quarterback has thrown for 3,000 yards since Trevor Lawrence in 2020. So that would be nice. Jay says if we couldn't see our backup running backs against the likes of VT Pitt, definitely don't expect to see them that much against this defense. Yeah, I'm with you. Nope. I mean, the staff is kind of showing you what they. I don't know. Maybe you'll see something different. You did have Garrett Riley admit that maybe we could have gotten Jay in a little bit more over the course of the year, but I don't know. Wet Socks. I love that name so much, man. I have to say it every time. Y'all are not realizing how well this Clemson D-line will affect that O-line, Sanders and Sellers. And I might be underestimating it but I did say I do think that the matchup, their offensive line has the toughest matchup in this game. They're not very good in pass protection. Just in terms of the comparative difference between the offensive line and the defensive line they're facing versus Clemson's offensive line and the defensive line they're facing, I think the gap is smaller there.
Look, the Clemson's defensive line has all the opportunity in the world to show what we thought they would be this season. The question is, will they do it against South Carolina, against a team that is, at the level as far as talent-wise? And that goes for the defensive side of the ball. That goes for the offensive side of the ball. Clemson has an opportunity this week to show that they can show up with a team that can compete physically, athletically with them, which is not anything they've shown so far this season, which is why that people have the things to say about Clemson that they do in the national media, on YouTube, in comment sections, so on and so forth. Clemson's got to go out there and prove it against a good team that can match up physically against them. So they got the opportunity this weekend, and we'll see.
Yep. User says Clemson rested a lot of starters last week. Dabo was going to have them ready for a blowout. I hope you're right.
Look, I hope so. I hope we absolutely go out there and blow the doors off this South Carolina team. Am I confident that that happens? No. Do I hope that that happens? 100%. This defense has the ability to shut down that running game. Now, they haven't showed the ability to do that all season, but if you look from a talent standpoint and who we have on defense, they're capable. They just haven't done it. And to Jordan's point, when somebody tells you who they are, believe them. And our defense have shown that they're incapable of being a consistent run-stopping defense, which is why they're ranked 55th, which is why they're giving up so many yards per game. They're going to have to come through in a completely different way this weekend if Clemson has a chance to win this game. Limiting the explosive run game, limiting Rocket Sanders, limiting Lenore Sellers on the ground, and forcing them to beat them through the air. That's the recipe for this Clemson defense to have a really good game. If they can't do that, it's going to turn into a long game. It's going to turn into a possession-type football game, a field possession game, and I don't give Clemson's offense a great chance in that scenario, right? Because the South Carolina defense is the real deal, and we talked about it in the preview.
Yep. Let's see. Let me scroll a little bit more. Oh my God! Stop. StreamYard is giving me a lot right now. People talking about Wes. I have my thoughts on that.
Yeah,
I'll leave it at that.
that's for later.
Yeah. Let's just hope let's just hope they have a good plan on Saturday. That's for sure. SEC Dog says, "Who have y'all played since week 1? You'll see, Jordan, sir." I don't know if you're referring to me. I don't know if you were here during the score prediction segment, but I picked Clemson to lose. So I don't know. You're trying to convince me of I don't know what you're trying to convince me here.
Yeah, you should be saying me, SEC Dog, because I picked Clemson to win.
Yeah,
Jordan picked Clemson to lose.
I've already we've both acknowledged Clemson's the teams that Clemson has played.
Yeah, look, it's not a great matchup for Clemson. We outlined all the reasons why in the preview. But this. With that said, this is not a slam dunk for South Carolina either.
Yeah,
this is an extremely losable game for both teams.
Exactly.
So to sit here and act like, it's just this slam dunk win for South Carolina, that's not the case. It's not a slam dunk win for either team. I think either team that wins this game is going to encounter a significant amount of adversity, right? Like, I don't see this game being a blowout. I see this game being very close, going down to the fourth quarter. And the team that makes the most stops on the defensive side of the ball wins the game. That's how I see this game going. Does that make me feel super warm and fuzzy on the inside as a Clemson fan? No, because our defense has had a lot of issues this year. But again, you predicted your score prediction, I predicted mine, and we'll be on here immediately following the game to either defend or eat crow on our score predictions.
Els King talking about Sammy Brown needs to start 4-3 defense, control the run. Well,
we'll see.
Maybe.
We'll see what Clemson comes out at. I do think that the Clemson staff is well aware of the necessity to stop the running game and limit it. How they choose to do that remains to be seen.
David says, I think Goodwin has a good plan when it gets to the field is the disconnect. And you could be right. Obviously I'm not. I don't think I think Wes is a very intelligent defensive mind. I do think that, but it takes more than X's and O's to be a good coach. That's
100%.
That's all I can say. All right. As Zachariah says, Els King has a good point. The defense plays the run better in 4-3 with Brown playing. I mean, you did see it against Virginia Tech. They ran for how many yards did Virginia Tech have in that game? Like 40 rushing yards, something like that. Couldn't run the football at all. Now they were hobbled. They had both quarterback and running back, as we as we noted. But yeah, it certainly helped. There weren't. You were not a sieve in your run defense that night. All right, let's do a couple more and then get on out of here. Jay says defensive stats are partly skewed by blowouts. Regardless, the defense hasn't met the standards. Yeah, absolutely. We gave the benefit of the doubt early in the year when the NC State game, the fourth quarter of the NC State game happened, and Virginia, and a couple of those games where you got up big early, and even App State scored a little bit against your backups. Like, we gave this defense the benefit of the doubt, and we're like, okay, well, the defensive stats don't look that great, but a lot of it was against backups. But then you get deeper into the season, and you have, the performances and the lapses continue that you had early in the season, continue.
Yeah, the excuses that were afforded to the defense early in the season could no longer be the case as we moved on and the season, got deeper and deeper, because we're just not good against the run. It is what it is. You can make whatever excuse you want to, but the stats don't lie. All right, this is week 14 of the college football season. You can't hide behind, we had a couple blowouts. It just doesn't work.
All right. Tiggs, echoing, can't stop the run. Big thing we have, zero chance to stop the run. Clemson defense can't stop the cheerleaders in the run game. Yeah. They've had some really, in the Louisville game, it was
bad.
Stanford ran all over you. Obviously, even the Citadel this past weekend, like, you just when teams have a little bit of success against you, it snowballs. Like, they don't. Like, you've had some games where you stopped the run pretty well, and but which is why you're not.
Which doesn't go well because you got a quarterback.
Why you're not like 90th in rush defense, but still.
Yeah, which you got a running quarterback this weekend that can really hurt you with his legs, which is where Clemson has had some of its biggest lapses this season. So it's not. We shall see.
See. SEC dog, in my opinion, West can't roll out the standard lace defense for South Carolina. They're mix it up more, disguise looks, etc. Yeah. I think you're gonna have to confuse Lenoris, give him a lot of different looks. He's still a freshman, redshirt freshman, first year starter. Make him, give him some things that he wouldn't necessarily be prepared for. It's a lot of tendency breakers, whatever. Prince Blake, during the Louisville game, it seemed as if the live mic hurt Clemson, like coaches were directing defensive players in the wrong direction. I don't know. Maybe I don't know if I saw that. I just think I don't think the players are being told the wrong thing to do. I just don't think they've been coached well enough that they know what they're supposed to do all the time. Tiger Fan 24 says defensive tackles have to get involved in this game. Trey Williams, Stephon Green, Peter Woods. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Peyton Page. You gotta win inside because it's so much harder just to run an offense when you're getting beat in the middle of your line. You can scheme around your tackles getting whooped. You can put a tight end there. You can chip. You can do some things to neutralize edge rushers. But if you're getting whooped at center, you're getting whooped at the guard spots, and you're getting interior, like they're collapsing the pocket. Yeah, it's hard to do anything offensively.
Yep.
The user says Louisville was going for their kneecaps, though. That's why Capehart was. Yeah, I mean, but it's part of the game. Cut blocks. Hey, honestly, at this point, I wouldn't be upset if Clemson tried it. Yeah, not to injure South Carolina's defensive line, but at times to neutralize the pass rush. It's within the rules of the game. I don't like it, but hey, if other teams are going to do it to you, I mean, you gotta have a response. If they're, I would not be upset if they eliminated that from the game in general, but it doesn't seem like they're going to.
Not at all. Not at all.
Michael Cope says, I thought starting Sammy Brown in the 4-3 base against Virginia Tech was a really good adjustment. Stop the run. Let's see some more of that. I hope so, but they made it very clear that was a game plan specific 1 week type thing. They felt like because they knew that Virginia Tech was going to dedicate a lot of resources to running the football. Tiger Fan 24, Mickens needs a big comeback, and I hope he's really healthy. Yeah, you're going to need him. He's been one of your best players. All right. I think that'll do it. We've gone a really long time, longer than we normally do, even for us. Yeah. I'm tired.
Very tired. Ready to go to bed. Got 31 people in the live chat right now. We've been going for 2 hours and 50 minutes at this point, Jordan. So thank you guys all for hanging out with us. Hit that like button on your way out. Consider subscribing. Me and Jordan do the All In Show right here on Clemson at the Voice of College Football year-round. It's normally on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. We've moved it to Monday because of Thanksgiving. Hopefully you guys are having an amazing Thanksgiving week. Hopefully you have safe travels to wherever you are spending time with friends and or family during the Thanksgiving holiday. Jordan, give our viewers some parting words, and we'll go ahead and get out of here.
Yeah, guys. Have a happy Thanksgiving week. Just and spend time with family, friends. This is one of the best times of the year. You get to stuff yourself with a bunch of food that you wouldn't normally eat, but tastes really good. And then go watch some football on Saturday. And hey, win or lose, we're gonna be here. And maybe honestly, the good thing is we can get it out the way. So we don't have to wait too long. The good thing about some of these nooners is you don't have to wait too long to figure out whether you're going to be upset the rest of the day or
right.
Or overly elated. So we'll see which one of us, one of those we are on Saturday. But yeah, seriously, you guys have a happy weekend, entire week. And we will see you guys on Saturday after the game to celebrate or cry on camera.
Absolutely. All right, guys. See you on Saturday around 3:30 p.m. immediately following the Clemson, South Carolina rivalry game this weekend in Death Valley. Until then, I'm Tiger Paul Craven. He's Jordan Bowman. Go Tigers.
Later, y'all.